After 13 seasons with the Dallas Mavericks, Rick Carlisle has decided to step down as head coach of the Mavericks, informing Mark Cuban that he will no longer be the head coach of this team moving forward. This is the Gray Area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. And you can catch you on your home of the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers, 105.3 The Fan. Rick Carlisle, after 13 seasons and becoming the 15th winningest head coach in all of the NBA, has decided to call it quits after delivering a championship to the Mavericks back in 2011, informing Mark Cuban today that he will no longer be the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. This is just 24 hours after the Mavericks decided to part ways with Donnie Nelson, who had been with the franchise for 24 years. Carlisle saying, quote, "After a number of in-person conversations with Mark Cuban over the last week, today I informed him that I will not be returning as head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. This was solely my decision. My family and I have had an amazing 13-year experience working with great people in a great city. It's been an honor to work alongside Mark, Cynthia Marshall, Donnie Nelson, Finn, Keith, Dirk, Jason Kidd, and every player and assistant coach I've had here. Dallas will always be home, but I'm excited about the next chapter of my coaching career," end quote. This is an absolute bombshell for an organization that appears to be cleaning house. Mark Cuban having already fired Donnie Nelson, Rick Carlisle now stepping down. They are already in search for a new general manager and president of basketball operations. Now sees itself looking for a brand new head coach. And we had talked about this. Whomever was brought in to be the new general manager and president of the basketball operations was not beholden to Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle obviously recognized that also, and that the winds of change continue to blow through this Mavericks organization. Tim McMahon of ESPN saying, quote, "Luka Doncic is a strong supporter of Mavs assistant coach Jamal Mosley. Quote, he got the things that are needed for a head coach. This is what Doncic said after a win earlier this season against the Knicks. He could be the head coach for sure," end quote. So Jamal Mosley potentially already an early candidate to be the head coach for the Dallas Mavericks. But this gets back to Rick Carlisle. After a year where there have been questions coming into this season and throughout the season about whether or not Rick Carlisle was the right head coach for this young team, especially for Luka Doncic going forward, and at times questions about the tension in terms of their relationship between Carlisle and Doncic, now has fully come to a head. This is absolutely incredible in terms of the turning events that we've seen. McMahon also saying, quote, "There had been simmering tension between Doncic and Rick Carlisle that was a concern within the Mavericks organization. The expectation was that he'd return next season, but he would have been on the hot seat." Again, just underscoring the relationship and the tension between Doncic and Carlisle and how that was starting to come to a head. But this Mavericks organization, whom for the past 10 years has not won a playoff series, now is in search of a brand new general manager and head coach. Meanwhile, Mark Cuban is now looking around at his organization with some Vegas Bob guys still there as of right now, even though his contract expires this summer, with no general manager, no head coach, and a superstar at 22 years of age who was just named first team All-NBA for the second consecutive year. This is not the way that you wanted to enter what was going to be the most important summer in franchise history, given what you had to do and try and surround Luka Doncic with pieces, given the stability that you were trying to project going forward. That has all gone out the window now, and there is no stability to speak of when it comes to this franchise right now with no head coach and no general manager and president of basketball operations. This does not bode well for free agency and potential trades coming up this summer when you've got players that are trying to look at the Mavericks situation and determine whether or not it is stable enough to be there long term. Now, don't get me wrong. Luka Doncic is going to sign that 5-year, $201.5 million contract extension, and you are going to do what you have to do to make him happy. So if that means potentially installing Jamal Mosley as the head coach, knowing that Doncic already supports him as potentially the head coach of this team, you do it. But now the Mavericks, who were already trying to figure out what they were going to do from a player standpoint with Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Richardson, if he opted into his $12 million option for his player option this coming summer, now are in the midst of trying to find a brand new head coach and a brand new general manager and trying to remake the culture of this basketball team. because after 13 years, Rick Carlisle has decided to step down as the head coach of this basketball team. Obviously, a bombshell that continues to show how tenuous a situation it is and perilous a situation it is right now with respect to the Mavericks, and more importantly, the future of Luka Doncic. The next moves that Mark Cuban makes will obviously be culture changing and altering for a Mavericks program that has seen two of its longest tenured members, Donnie Nelson of 24 years and Rick Carlisle, 13 years as the head coach, now move on either by firing or by quitting and leaving this organization. Mark Cuban is going to take a ton of heat for what has happened over the past 2 weeks, not just what has happened in terms of this team not making it out of the first round after having a 2-0 series lead against the Los Angeles Clippers, but the story of him installing a guy in Bob Voulgaris 3 years ago and him continuing to gain influence within the organization to the point where it drew tensions between Nelson and Voulgaris to the point where Nelson was basically fired after a stalemate with Mark Cuban. And now comes the news that Rick Carlisle has decided to step down after 13 seasons with this basketball team, continuing the volatility for an organization that needed to project stability going into this offseason. That is not happening. So obviously now going forward for an organization in the Dallas Mavericks, now Rick Carlisle will be looking for one of these jobs elsewhere. There are already 6 head coaching jobs available in the NBA. Rick Carlisle will be a hot commodity for his next potential head coaching job, whether it be in Boston, Orlando, Indiana, any number of teams that are looking for a new head coach. Rick Carlisle now shoots to the very top of the list. Maybe even a potential Milwaukee if they are not able to handle their business against the Brooklyn Nets in the rest of this series. So change is coming for the Mavericks. New GM, new president of basketball operations, and now a brand new head coach. For a team that tried to model stability over the last 10 to 15 years with the way that they comported themselves, being able to win a championship in 2011, things have obviously blown up in the matter of 3 days. First, with Donnie Nelson being dismissed. Before that, a story talking about the internal office conflict with Bob Voulgaris in this front office altogether, and Mark Cuban being at the very top of that, knowing that change was going to be coming. Now Rick Carlisle has decided he has had enough and saw the writing on the wall because, as I mentioned, the new GM and president of basketball operations is not beholden to anyone in this organization except Luka Doncic. He is your generational star. But anytime a new regime comes in, it is time for that coach to potentially look at his situation and say, you know what, I may not be around here longer because this GM isn't beholden to what I've already done here and may want to bring in his own people. That's exactly what's happening here. The bombshell news. Rick Carlisle, after 13 seasons, winning a championship in 2011, the 15th winningest head coach in NBA history, has decided to call it quits when it comes to being head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. What a summer it's going to be for this Mavericks organization that is clearly going through upheaval in more ways than one. And now this. Mark Cuban finally saying, quote, to Tim McMahon of ESPN, I truly love Rick Carlisle. He was not a good coach, but also a friend and a confidant. Our relationship was so much more than basketball, and I know that won't ever change, end quote. There you go. After 13 seasons, Rick Carlisle out as head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks now continue their search, not just for a new president and general manager, but now in search of a new head coach who will look to usher in the future with Luka Doncic and a basketball team that is in clear transition going forward to try and determine what its next steps will be. This is going to be the most important summer in franchise history for a Mavericks team that has a bright future ahead of it with a superstar who's a 2-time first-team All-NBA selection, and more importantly, should be able to try and attract people to come play with said player and Luka Doncic. But now, how stable really is this organization given the upheaval that you have seen now over the last 24 to 36 hours? What a time to be a Mavericks fan for life. Your patience is going to be tested. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. It's been another episode of The Gray Area. We'll talk to you later. Peace.